Hey folks, it's Vigilantes week once again, and unfortunately, I have some bad news for you guys because it looks like the next chapter of Vigilantes is coming out in 3 weeks. That means we're looking at a chapter released the week of June 11th. This tells me that the story needs to slow down a little bit. The Nightmare Knight in Naruhara is aiming to be a great ending to Vigilantes, so I'm fine if they want to stretch it out a bit just to make us stir on what ifs. Though that's going to be it for spoilers during the intro. If you're new to the channel, welcome! Be sure to hit that subscribe button and help support the bar. And if you want to become one of the regulars around here, be sure to hit that notification bell. That way, you never miss a premiere where everybody gets the chance to live chat with me as the video airs. So with that being said, let's head inside and break down chapter 102 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. Welcome to the bar. So, this week's chapter of My Hero Academia Vigilantes mostly focused on the conversation that takes place while Koichi is on the run, providing us, the reader, what Tsukauchi and Soga were up to when the power first kicked out. While at the same time, we get to see number 6 enter the hospital rather explosively. Now, the main goal of this arc has always been to protect Popstep from number 6's grudge. Originally, I was under the impression that the reason why number 6 was doing this was to hide his identity from Popstep releasing that information. But by the end of this chapter, it's become explicitly clear that number 6 has thrown caution to the wind. He's done all that he needs to do, and now he just wants to kill Popstep because he has the goal now of just hurting Koichi. So, let me finish pouring this drink, and let's head over to the wall and break down chapter 102, because number 6 in this chapter is kind of reminiscent of the Joker and the Reverse Flash having a love child. Alright, so chapter 102 starts off exactly where it was at the end of chapter 101. Number 6 is broken into the hospital and is making his way through the various corridors of the secure wing. The police on guard out front with Raft and Moyu cannot possibly stand up to number 6, so with them paralyzed with fear, the speedster villain walks in and starts gigantifying his hands to blast through all the doors. Now, as number 6 walks throughout the hospital, the O-Clock vestige appears and confirms one of my theories that the Anons are a hive mind controlled by number 6 using overclock to relay messages. So, in order to focus on the task at hand, he has to ditch him and work solo. So now that number 6 is a solo operator, the only person that stands between him and the door to Popstep's room is Tsukauchi. And I love when comics and anime do callbacks to previous chapters, because when Tsukauchi says that my first shot will hit and then it says please see chapter 35, it's talking about when Tsukauchi fires warning shots at number 6. This time, he ain't gonna be firing warning shots. Because during that fight, number 6 was almost captured, and he took an officer's gun and shot Tsukauchi with it. But back then, he was just a baby number 6 with his goals not fully realized, meaning he was kind of missing the murderous intent that he has right now. Actually, during chapter 35, he says that he has no intention of killing Tsukauchi, and if Tsukauchi died from the rubber bullets, he wouldn't have just given a shit. So as far as getting into someone's head, number 6 definitely knows how to push the right buttons. And if he's willing to bring up that whole debacle, I guess it's only a matter of time before number 6 brings up the fact that he tried to kill Tsukauchi's sister. So at this point in the chapter, number 6 is ready to take on the remaining officers, and as he goes to move, a gunshot pierces the window. It's Soga. The chapter then gives us an explanation as to why Tsukauchi wasn't in the front of the building during number 6's initial assault. 30 minutes prior to number 6 entering the building, him and the rest of the defenders went inside to check the status of the hospital, mostly because the power has just gone out and I'm pretty sure Popstep is still on a form of life support at this time. Not to mention the several other patients that might also be in the secure wing at this time, because for all we know, a certain individual who lost an arm could possibly be there as well. Hashtag Compass Kid, hashtag not dead till we see a body. Anyway, we see during the flashback that Rapt appears and tells Tsukauchi that Soga wants to speak. And if there's one thing that we should all acknowledge by now, it's that Soga is an excellent investigator. I mean, at this point, he's pretty good at formulating plans. His plan to rescue Popstep from Endeavor worked, and he enabled Koichi to escape from the heroes. So when Tsukauchi goes to meet up with him, it's the two big brains of the operation meeting up to formulate the endgame. But essentially, their conversation takes place during the events of Chapter 101, and I love the conversations between Soga and Tsukauchi. Soga's really only a vigilante because society turned their back on him. But now that he's just become this prolific vigilante, I wouldn't be surprised if afterwards Soga is offered the chance to become a police officer by Tsukauchi. Because when Tsukauchi delegates the plan, he abides by it perfectly. I mean, the two already know that they really only have a finite amount of time before Soga runs out of bullets and number 6 takes them all out. And while this plan is a good idea and it showcases the teamwork between Soga and Tsukauchi, I don't necessarily know if they know that number 6 can regenerate. But if he uses overclock to regenerate a hand relatively quickly, gunshots to his kneecaps really aren't gonna do much. Number 6 is shifty. He'll just wait till the remaining police officers get close and then he'll take the rest of the cops out. Though during that conversation in the flashback between Tsukauchi and Soga, he told him not to get mad if he decides to improvise, and that's when chapter 101 and 102 collide. At the end of chapter 101, Soga was already on the rooftop when Koichi arrived, so when Koichi showed up, Soga capitalized on it and wrote Koichi into the equation. So in chapter 102, when Koichi slings into the room and starts firing off his Shurigo Blam to cover for Soga's reload, it becomes the perfect deterrent. At the strength that he's firing his Shurigo Blams, it enables him to fire more in a volley, but each one can cause a bit of a wallop, so the vestige of o'clock still tells number 6 to dodge them. And essentially, Soga and Tsukauchi's plan works because number 6 accelerates. And since he's accelerating to dodge the Shurigo Blams, he doesn't notice that Tsukauchi puts 2 in his legs. And the chapter more or less wraps up with the police actually going in to apprehend number 6. Now, this is kind of working towards that whole situation that I said previously, where number 6 is just going to be like, haha, bitches, I'm actually not hurt, causing him and Koichi to have an all-out fight. Though I do have to comment on something right now, because in the past couple of chapters, I gotta say, we've seen a lot of character development for number 6 as a villain. The grudge that he has against the vigilantes of Naruhata is so intense that he tried to destroy the entire city of Naruhata. I mean, when this whole debacle started out, it was using Popstep to kill Koichi. Then it became killing Popstep before she snitches him out. Now, since everyone knows number 6 is the bad guy, he's gone full-on lunatic mode and is trying to kill Popstep just to make Koichi suffer. Now, I did say before that these random acts of violence and chaos are reminiscent of the Joker, but more and more I think about it, I have to go back to my previous theory and say that number 6 is an absolute psychopath, and he's more like the Reverse Flash. He wants to ruin Koichi's life at this point. He wants him to feel despair of losing, and when there's nothing left, he will kill Koichi. Which in my opinion turns him into a super petty villain, which is reminiscent of All for One's grudge against One for All. It's a hate that, for all intents and purposes, supersedes the word hate itself. It actually burns so brightly that it provides them with enjoyment. But with that being said, I really want to talk about the o'clock vestige as well. I mean, look, number 6 is either hallucinating a mental projection of his own psychosis through a vestige, or that's All for One disguised as o'clock. And I know some people have just said that it's just his mind disassociating because of how fucked his brain is, but I can't help but bring up what I've said over and over. And that is, I believe that he's a clone of All for One created in the grand scheme to steal One for All. Prior to number 6's creation, All for One had a run-in with O'Clock, learned about the quirk, and then desired to own it. It wasn't until he fought All Might and was severely damaged that he actually got his hands on it though. Meaning that the quirk Overclock could have been essential to the creation of the clone number 6, who, if became a stable individual, may have served as a second body to All for One instead of trying to steal Shigaraki, but we all see how that kind of, panned out. And since number 6 isn't a good body to take over, All for One's search continues, and it's possible that Shigaraki is the quote-unquote number 10 and the final candidate. So yeah, I would definitely say that number 6 is meant to be a replacement body, though my guess is he's probably already considered failed goods and released into the wild. We haven't really gotten the obvious scene that these two are tied to one another, other than besides how he looks. But since that flashback arc exists, it lets us, the reader, know that All for One is absolutely wrapped up in this situation. So now, in terms of what might happen in chapter 103, I see number 6 not falling into his last stand mode right away, but definitely regenerating to the point where it becomes a one-on-one fight between him and Koichi. Now, if number 6 does get pushed up against the wall, I imagine that he would be able to control those anonymous soldiers outside the hospital and bring them inside to start blowing them up. He's gonna do everything he can and use everything at his disposal to try to kill Popstep. He's not a really half-measure kind of guy. So in the end, there's no option that he's not gonna pull out. And I don't know if I'm gonna catch some flack for saying this, but I guess having Knuckle Duster show up at this point in the story is almost like having All Might show up halfway through the final fight between Shigaraki and Deku. It's gonna be interesting to see how the stakes get upped further from here. And I really hope the ability to fly just becomes a part of Koichi's fighting style now. I actually said in the previous chapter review that a close corridor battle might be something that we see, and that is exactly what's aiming up to happen in Chapter 103. Koichi's ability to fly is essentially Overclock's main weakness. Once somebody loses their footing on the ground, they can't accelerate, which would mean that Koichi has the advantage right now. But I really gotta say, I think that we're experiencing the end of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, because after number 6 is apprehended, what's really left for the story? I mean, there's quite a few loose ends to wrap up, but for the most part, everything is kind of falling into place here. And if I had to guess what Chapter 103 will entail, it'll be a full-blown fight between Koichi and number 6, with number 6 possibly having the advantage at the end. And it's possible that the Nightmare Night in Naruhara ends late July, early August. And if it does end in August, that would mean that it ends towards the anniversary of its 5th year. All in all, I really did enjoy this chapter. Number 6 is taking steps to join the pantheon of villains in My Hero Academia's universe. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of doubting this guy as a villain, but now, the way that he's acting, how ruthless he's being, I truly think that he's stepped up his villain factor a lot more since the past couple of chapters. And in all honesty, I'm anxious to see what's next. So, if you have any theories as to how Koichi will deal with number 6, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. I'll be sure to put out a theory video in the meantime. It's been overdue since I've done one anyway. So maybe we get back to our roots and break out some theories. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. And remember, you're always welcome here at Dan Exclaims. Cheers!